Once upon a time, in the heart of the jungle, there was a troop of monkeys. Now this was no ordinary troop. They were mad, absolutely bonkers, crazy monkeys. They swung from tree to tree with reckless abandon, chattering and screeching at the top of their lungs. Now the problem was all the best mango trees were very high up, and the monkeys, despite their agility, couldn't quite reach them. So they came up with a plan. One of the monkeys, the biggest and the strongest of them all, would climb up the tree and get the mangoes. And then, once he got the mangoes, the other monkeys would pull him up, branch by branch, until he was up in the tree with them feasting on the juicy mangoes. The idea was tempting, but they also knew that the monkeys were unpredictable enough already. And if they started dancing as well, who knows what kind of chaos that could lead to. No, they decided it was best to stay away from those mangoes. It seemed like a good plan. They could make whoever ate them laugh nonstop for 24 hours. And after 24 hours, they would turn the person into a frog. The princess, of course, didn't know any of this. And she spent the entire day throwing magic beans and laughing. And so she spent the night laughing and splashing around in the pond. When the sun came up, she hopped out and started to dry herself on a nearby rock. And that's when she saw a boy walking past. The boy, he was very handsome, and the frog princess couldn't help herself. He dreamed of becoming a great explorer, a real adventurer. He wanted to see the world beyond the cheese land and have all sorts of exciting experiences. She started to laugh. The boy, he stopped and stared at the laughing frog. And crackers for lunch, put on his explorer's hat, grabbed his magnifying glass, and set off on his adventure. He followed the winding river, over hills of cheddar and valleys of Swiss cheese, until he reached a huge mountain made of Parmesan cheese. He had never been so happy in his whole life. But as he approached the land of sweets, he noticed something strange. So with a determined look on his face, he started to walk towards the land of sweets. The path was covered with traps, pitfalls, and all sorts of obstacles. And guarding the path was a ferocious-looking cheese grater, its blade sharp and its eyes glowing red. At the base of the mountain was a small cave, and Mortimer, well, he didn't hesitate. He scurried into the cave without a second thought. The tales of adventure were so exciting that Mortimer couldn't sleep. Instead, he would sit at the entrance of his hole, staring at the moon and dreaming of the day when he would go on his own adventure. Then he picked her up and put her on his shoulder, and they walked together into the forest. Mortimer, he took a deep breath, dipped his paw into the caramel, and came out with a shiny key. He tried the key in the hole, and to his surprise, it fit perfectly. With a loud creak, the cave opened up, revealing a path leading to the land of sweets. It was said to be a place where rivers flowed with chocolate, mountains were made of candy, and trees grew lollipops instead of fruit. Mortimer, he was immediately sold. He wanted to visit the land of sweets more than anything else in the world. She felt great. It was the most fun she had ever had in her life. They looked at each other, and for the first time, they noticed something strange. And so he spent the night splashing around in the stream. When the sun came up, he hopped out and started to dry himself on a nearby stone. And that's when he saw the frog princess sitting on a log nearby. And they both started to laugh. And that's how the very special princess met a very special prince. Her legs felt weak and her arms felt heavy. Then she looked down and she saw that she was turning green. Not just a little green, mind you, completely green. She was turning into a frog. The princess, she tried to hop away, but it was too late. The magic was already taking hold. She hopped and she hopped and she hopped until she reached a small pond and plopped right into it. Their fur, it wasn't brown or black or gray. It was green. Yes, the monkeys, they had turned green. They looked at each other in amazement, and then they started to scream. Not in their usual way, but in a way that sounded like laughter. And after a while, the boy started to feel a little funny. His legs felt weak and his arms felt heavy. Then he looked down and he saw that he was turning green as well. The boy, he tried to run, but it was too late. The magic was already taking hold. He ran, and he ran until he reached a small stream and jumped right into it. They roared with laughter until their sides hurt. And then they went back to their homes in the trees, each one wondering if maybe, just maybe, tomorrow they would try eating some more of those crazy mangoes. The other animals in the jungle, they tried to avoid these monkeys because they were just so unpredictable. You never knew what they would do next. Now this was no ordinary princess. She was a very special princess. You see, she had a big problem. She couldn't stop laughing. Well, it all started with a magic bean. One day the princess was walking through the market when she heard someone crying. It was a little girl who had lost her puppy. The princess, she wanted to help, so she asked everyone around, but no one had seen the puppy. Then the princess had an idea. She went to the tallest tower in the city and started to laugh. She laughed and she laughed until the king, her father, came running up the stairs asking her why she was making so much noise. The princess told him about the little girl and the king. He was a very nice king, so he had an idea himself. He took the princess to the royal stables and let her pick one of the fastest horses. Then he gave her a bag of magic beans and told her to throw them into the air and laugh as hard as she could. And so the princess did just that. She threw the beans into the air and laughed until the horse galloped off in the distance. It wasn't a polite laugh or even a quiet giggle. It was a loud, booming laugh that could shake the very foundations of the kingdom. He scampered up the rough bark, his sharp claws digging into the tree. But when he reached the first branch, instead of climbing higher, he started doing something else. He started to dance. He danced, and he danced, and he danced until the mangoes fell out of his hands and crashed to the ground below. And then he climbed down the tree and joined the other monkeys in their dance. Soon they were all dancing together, completely oblivious to the fact that they had just wasted a whole bunch of delicious mangoes. He reached the first branch and started munching on the ripe mangoes. Oh, they were delicious. But as soon as he had eaten a few, he started to feel a little funny. The world around him, it started to spin. The leaves on the trees, they looked like they were dancing. And the sweet taste of the mangoes, it filled him with an overwhelming urge to, well, to dance. Yes, the monkeys, they had discovered the secret of the mangoes. If you ate enough of them, they made you dance. And not just any dance. Oh no, they made you dance like nobody was watching. They unleashed the wildest, craziest dance moves inside of you. One day the monkeys decided that they wanted some mangoes. And so the first monkey started climbing. Now, the other monkeys, they didn't know about this, of course, and they were eagerly waiting for their strong friend to bring them some mangoes. Now, back in the jungle, when the other animals saw the monkeys dancing like that, they started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, they should try eating some of those crazy mangoes themselves. As the sun started to set, the monkeys finally calmed down, and they sat together on a low-hanging branch. Once upon a time in a kingdom far, far away, there lived a princess. You might be wondering why the princess laughed so much. Now, you might be wondering what the magic beans were all about. Well, here's the thing. Those beans, they had a special power. But as the sun started to set, she started to feel a little funny. Now, as a frog, she wasn't allowed to speak, but she could still laugh. The frog princess, she kept laughing, and the boy, he kept walking. Now, as a frog, he wasn't allowed to speak either, but he could still laugh. Once upon a time, in a land made of cheese, there was a little mouse named Mortimer. Now Mortimer was no ordinary mouse. Every night before bed, Mortimer would snuggle up in his cozy hole and listen to his grandfather's tales of daring adventures and faraway lands. One night, as Mortimer was listening to his grandfather's stories, he learned about a magical place called the Land of Sweets. So the very next day, Mortimer packed a small bag with some cheese inside. The walls were lined with sparkling gems, and in the center was a small pool of bubbling caramel. Overjoyed, Mortimer ran down the path, his heart pounding with excitement. Undeterred, Mortimer stood his ground. He knew that if he backed down now, he would never forgive himself.